The pursuit of greatness can push humans to the edge, but for some, that final push would cost them their lives. Here are the most disturbing deaths ever recorded in the name of a world record. Sailendra Nath Roy. On April 28, 2013, hundreds of people gathered near the Tiesta River in West Bengal, India, to witness a spectacle unlike anything they had seen before. At the center of the crowd's excitement was 48-year-old Sailendra Nath Roy, a daredevil performer and Indian police officer known across the region for his unbelievable hair-based stunts. He already held 2 Guinness World Records, one for pulling a train with his ponytail and another for traveling the farthest distance on a zip line using only his hair. That day, he intended to break his own record, a 595.5-foot steel zip line stretched high above the rushing Tiesta River, connecting 2 points of land. Suspended from that cable was not a harness, not straps, not even a safety gear. Roy planned to attach himself solely by his thickened, extremely strong ponytail, which he has spent years conditioning for stunts. As he prepared, spectators erupted in cheers, amazed that a man could attempt something so extreme with nothing but his hair. Roy began his attempt. He secured his ponytail to the wheeled clamp that would roll across the line, lifted himself off the ground, and started gliding forward. The crowd roared as he moved confidently through the air, his body dangling and swaying above the fast-moving river. He had successfully covered such distances. It was supposed to be another triumphant moment. But halfway across, something went terribly wrong. About 300 feet into the journey, Roy suddenly slowed down and then stopped. His ponytail had become tangled with the zip line's trolley mechanism. He tried desperately to free himself, swinging and twisting his body in midair. But it wasn't working. Roy continued struggling, his leg kicking as he reached upward, but could not release the knot. Minutes passed. His movement grew weaker. For nearly 30 minutes he hung there, trapped, suspended above the river with no way to climb back or move forward. The crowd began screaming for help, but there was no rescue equipment on site. Organizers had not arranged proper safety precautions, and the zip line was too high to reach quickly. By the 45-minute mark, Roy's body went limp. Only then did local emergency responders manage to bring him down. But by the time he reached land, it was already too late. He was rushed to a nearby hospital, but doctors pronounced him dead on arrival. Medical officers later concluded that he had suffered a massive heart attack while hanging on the line. The stunt that was meant to secure Sailendra Nath Roy's yet another world record claimed his life. Nicholas Mavoli. The world of free diving gathered at Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas, one of the deepest underwater sinkholes on Earth and home to some of the sport's most daring achievements. Among the competitors at Vertical Blue, the most prestigious free diving event, was 32-year-old American diver Nicholas Mavoli, a rising star known for his exceptional talent and relentless ambition. November 15, 2013, Mavoli attempted to reach a depth of 96 meters, 315 feet, in the free immersion category, but had to turn back at 80 meters after suffering an upper respiratory squeeze. 2 days later, Mavoli prepared to attempt a dive to 72 meters, 236 feet, in the constant weight no fins category, one of freediving's most demanding disciplines. No fins, no propulsion, only pure human endurance, using arms and legs to descend and ascend. It was a depth he had trained for and believed he could reach. As he stood on the platform, the water around him perfectly calm, Mavoli breathed deeply, slowly lowering his heart rate and lowering his oxygen consumption. Spectators, fellow free divers, and safety teams watched in silence. The horn sounded. He slipped to the surface. Mavoli descended slowly and efficiently, pulling himself down the line into the deepening blue. For the first 60 meters, everything appeared smooth. But at 68 meters, just 4 meters short of his planned goal, observers on the surface saw a sign that something was not right. Mavoli stopped descending and began to turn back. But then, in a sudden and puzzling decision, he changed his mind and continued downward again, trying to reach the tag at 72 meters. He reached the depth, but the delay had cost precious time and oxygen. By the time Mevely began ascending, he had already spent far longer underwater than intended. His smooth technique began to show signs of strain. Safety divers watched closely as he made his way upward. 3 minutes and 38 seconds after leaving the surface, Mevely broke through the water line. Cheers started to erupt until something went wrong. The moment he surfaced, Mevely attempted to take a recovery breath, but fell backwards into the ocean and lost consciousness. Safety divers immediately swam to him and lifted his body onto the platform. The medical team rushed in, performing CPR and emergency procedures. For 90 minutes, they fought desperately to revive him. He was transported to a nearby hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Later medical evaluations reported that he suffered pulmonary edema. Nicholas Mevely became the first athlete to die during an international freediving competition, marking one of the darkest days in the sport's history. Javad Palizbanian. In August 2005, thousands gathered at an airfield in Iran to witness a stunt that many believed impossible. Javad Palizbanian is a 44-year-old Iranian daredevil known across the country for his fearless motorcycle feats and unwavering determination to push the boundaries of human capacity. But on this day, he planned something unprecedented. Palizbanian announced his goal to jump over 22 buses, a distance of nearly 209 feet, breaking previous records. He was determined to break Evel Knievel's iconic bus jump, which spanned 13 buses. The stunt was being broadcast live on Iranian television. Cameras, journalists, and spectators filled the field, all waiting to see what would become one of the most dangerous motorcycle jumps ever attempted. Palizbanian sat on top of his motorcycle at the far end of the runway. He accelerated and the motorcycle roared across the runway, gaining speed as it approached the ramp. Spectators cheered, television commentators spoke excitedly, and for a moment, everything seemed to go as planned. Palizbanian hit the ramp and launched into the air, soaring above the first several buses with perfect balance. But seconds into the flight, something was wrong. His speed had not been enough. As his motorcycle flew over the 12th bus, his trajectory began to dip dangerously. By the time he crossed the 13th bus, he slammed directly into the top of the 13th bus with catastrophic force. The impact was immediate and fatal. Screams erupted from the crowd as the motorcycle descended and Palizbanian's body crashed violently onto a bus. Within seconds, producers cut the live broadcast, replacing the screen with a statement noting that the crash scene was too disturbing to be shown publicly. Medical teams rushed to the buses, but there was nothing to save. Javad Palizbanian died on impact. News of the tragedy spread rapidly. What was meant to be a world-breaking achievement became one of the most devastating stunt accidents ever witnessed on live television. Juan Francisco Guillermo. For nearly 5 years, Juan Francisco Guillermo had pleaded across continents, climate, and culture, chasing a dream that required extraordinary strength and determination. His goal was almost unimaginable: to cycle 155,530 miles, 250,000 kilometers, across 5 continents in 5 years, setting a new world record for the longest continuous bicycle journey. He had survived remote deserts, unpredictable weather, wild traffic, and the exhausting solitude of long-distance travel. Each mile brought him closer to the finish. Each border cross became a story his family cherished. And on the last leg of his journey in 2015, Guillermo was finally nearing the end of the challenge he had devoted years of his life to. His wife and their 2-year-old son were with him, supporting him as they often did during stretches of his ride. They traveled alongside him in a support vehicle, making sure he had food, rest, and encouragement as he approached the final chapter of his record-breaking attempt. But fate intervened in the cruelest way possible. On that day, Guillermo was cycling within the designated bike lane, following traffic laws as he always did. The road ahead was clear. Nothing suggested danger. Then, in an instant, everything changed. A speeding pickup truck veered into the bike lane, and in a moment, the car slammed into Guillermo with devastating force. The impact was so severe that it killed him instantly. His wife and 2-year-old son were on another bicycle. They suffered a slight sprain in the accident and were left in unimaginable shock and horror. The dream he had pursued for years, only miles from completion, was shattered in a moment. Emergency responders arrived and the road was quickly closed off. Witness statements confirmed that Guillermo had been exactly where he was supposed to be riding when he was hit. Authorities arrested the truck driver on charges of causing death by dangerous driving. Haris Suleiman. In the summer of 2014, 17-year-old Haris Suleiman, a talented young pilot from Indiana, embarked on a mission that combined ambition and adventure. Alongside his father, Babar Suleiman set out to fly around the world in 30 days, aiming to become the youngest person to complete such a journey. But breaking a world record wasn't the heart of the mission. Haris wanted to inspire. He hoped their journey would draw attention to the struggles of underprivileged children in Pakistan, raising awareness and funds for education, shelter, and opportunity through the Citizens Foundation. Every mile they flew meant bringing hope to children across the globe. Over the course of their trip, the father-son duo crossed oceans, continents, and thousands of miles in their single-engine Beechcraft Bonanza. They documented their progress, shared updates, and gained widespread support. People admired not only Haris's skill as a young pilot, but also the courage of a teenager who wanted to use his dreams to change the world. By late July, they had already traveled through Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. Their global circle was nearly complete. But on July 22, 2024, tragedy struck. Shortly after taking off from Pago Pago International Airport in American Samoa, their plane encountered trouble. It had just lifted into the night sky over the Pacific when it suddenly crashed into the ocean. Witnesses reported seeing the aircraft struggle moments after takeoff before falling into the water. The impact was violent. Emergency crews rushed to the site, but the plane sank quickly into the dark waves. Haris's body was recovered soon after, but his father's body was never found. The news devastated the global community following their journey. What had begun as an inspiring mission, one meant to set records and support children, came to an abrupt, heartbreaking end. Investigators later reviewed the plane's condition and the circumstances of takeoff, but found no definitive single cause for the crash. Guy Garman. Veteran diver and physician Guy Garman, known in the diving world as Doc Deep, prepared to attempt one of the most dangerous challenges a human being can face underwater: a descent to 1,200 feet, 365 on scuba gear. The existing world record, held by Egyptian diver Ahmed Gaber, stood at 1,090 feet. German divers intended not just to break it, but to surpass it by over 100 feet, pushing into depths few divers had ever approached and where survival becomes slim. Garman was no amateur. He had completed dozens of deep dives and spent years meticulously planning this attempt. Specialized equipment, decompression gases, support divers, and safety protocols were arranged. His team understood the risks, but Garman was determined. He believed he could do what nearly no one else dared. On the morning of August 15, 2015, off the coast of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Doc Deep entered the water. The ocean was calm, the sky clear. A support crew waited above, prepared to monitor his descent and meet him at a designated rendezvous air station during his long and complex decompression ascent. Doc Deep signaled readiness and began his descent toward the deep, black, pressurized world below. As the minutes passed, the support team closely monitored the timeline. By the time he should have begun ascending, Doc Deep had not appeared. His failure to reach the planned rendezvous station triggered immediate concern. Minutes turned into hours, and hours turned into a search. Emergency responders, support divers, and marine authorities mobilized to scan the surrounding area. They searched for bubbles, equipment signals, or any sign of Garman. The dive had gone fatally wrong somewhere in the black depths. His wife, grieving but composed, later released a statement confirming that both her husband's remains and gear had been brought back to the surface. The medical examiner ruled his death a drowning, but experts in the community knew that extreme depth involves multiple physiological dangers. These stories show the thin line between greatness and tragedy. Subscribe and turn on post notifications for more.